Hello and welcome to Peggy's Tropical Garden, coming to you from the Florida Keys. This video is all about the Ctenanthe Lubbersiana. I'll share with you how I care for this beautiful plant as well as show you a step-by-step demonstration of propagation. Here's my Ctenanthe Lubbersiana. This footage is from my haul video when I purchased this plant for $8 locally last summer. It was purchased at a landscaping nursery because, yes, in South Florida, these plants are often used in landscaping. So now let me show you what this plant looks like today. To share this plant with you, I'll have to take you outside in my garden. I am using it as part of my landscaping. However, it is in a nursery pot. It is potted. So as you can see, it has grown quite a bit. Now, the Ctenanthe Lubbersiana is also known as the Brazilian snow plant. It's native to tropical Brazil, and it's in the Maranta family. These are evergreen perennials, and they're sought after because of their colorful leaves with the cream or yellow markings, as you can see here. In the United States, these plants can be grown outdoors year-round in hardiness zones 11 and 12. I happen to be in hardiness zone 11. So if you're living in an area where the temperatures in the winter dip below 55 degrees Fahrenheit, you may want to consider planting your Ctenanthe in a pot so that you can take it indoors during the colder months. Now, these plants can grow up to 2 to 3 feet in height and 3 to 4 feet in width. They're pretty fast growing if given the right conditions. So we're going to talk about outdoor conditions, and then we're going to pot one up and talk about the indoor conditions as well. These plants prefer indirect, bright sunlight. I have this one located under the canopy of a tree, but it gets a lot of really bright indirect sunlight in this location. In fact, it gets a little direct sunlight as well, which is why you can see that some of the leaves are brown and curled up. They're getting a little too much sunlight. If the leaves get too much sunlight, they burn, as you can see here. And if they don't get enough sunlight, they lose their variegation. So the bright indirect light is definitely an important factor. The next important factor is humidity. Out here right now today, I just checked and we're at 75% humidity. These are tropical plants and they definitely need humidity to thrive. In addition to humidity, these plants require slightly moist soil all summer long. So during the growing season, they like their soil to remain moist. In the winter, it can dry out a little bit between waterings. I'm not sure if I can find it in here, but I actually have a drip irrigation head in here. I can't tell where it is, but I have a drip irrigation head in there that comes on 3 times a week to keep the soil slightly moist so that it never dries out. And that's what keeps this plant happy. You can definitely tell when the soil has gone dry because all of these leaves will totally curl up and the plant it lets you know that it needs water. So what I'm doing now is I'm looking for a piece to propagate. This looks like a good section because it has a lot of nice variegation. So you'd be surprised at just how easy this plant is to propagate. Now you can propagate from division as well as through cuttings. Today I'm going to show you how I do it using cuttings. Here is the section that I decided to choose for cutting. It has nice variegation on the leaves, and so that's what I was looking for. Now you want to get a piece that has a bit of a stem, just a few inches. You don't need it really long, and as many leaves as possible, and hopefully some nodes. So I'll show you where to look for the nodes in just a moment. These Ctenanthe are susceptible to mealybugs, spider mites, and aphids. So I'm giving the plant a really good wash down since I took the cutting from a plant that was growing outside. I don't want to run the risk of introducing any pests to any of my other plants by bringing this one indoors or around my patio plants. So I highly encourage you to do this if you are taking your cutting from a plant that's been outside. Okay, now I'm just giving the plants another good once over just to make sure that I don't see any signs of any problems on this plant, and everything looks pretty good. Yeah, there's even some new leaves coming. If you look closely, you can see them coming out, starting to emerge. But all right, all is well on this plant. I highly encourage you to always inspect your plants, even though you feel like there's nothing going on or they've been treated, as I do treat my outdoor plants too. So here's the cutting we're working with. As you can see, I did the cutting a few inches below the apex of the plants where all the stems come together. I picked one with a lot of leaves and some very nice variegation. Now, if you look really closely here, you can see the nodes. There's the beginning of some nodes as well as some tiny roots that have begun to emerge. If you have the opportunity to get your cutting that already has some nodes or some roots started, all the better. So that's another reason why I opted for this particular cutting. All right, so now on to potting up the plant. I have some soil here that I was going to use for another plant. There's really not as much organic material as it appears. This was at the top. Right now I'm putting in my systemic. I like to add that now so that I can avoid any problems down the future, hopefully. And I'm just mixing that in the top couple of inches of the soil. Now these Ctenanthe like soil that hold moisture. Just popping this in, and my stem's a little too long, so I'm going to clip that off here because you want it to be able to stand. Now the part with the nodes and the roots emerging, I'm going to have that right below the surface of the soil, and it stands up perfectly, and it's just that easy to pot up a cutting. Now, one thing to know about these plants is they do like their soil to remain moist, so you can actually use a regular potting soil. And I'm going to water in a little bit here since it already has some nodes and some roots beginning, but I'm not going to soak the soil. But you do want it to remain slightly moist once it has roots. Now, you could also put this in water to begin rooting. That's another method, but since I've potted mine up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this plant in an area where it can get bright indirect light with high humidity, and you can achieve that humidity by using a pebble tray under it or putting it in a bag. I'm going to have mine here where it will get some overflow light from my propagation station, so it will have plenty of bright light. And I live in the Keys, and it's pretty humid in this area, so it will also have some decent humidity. Now, once it is well rooted, which I can check by pulling slightly on the plant, that should happen in like 2 or 3 weeks. And once it's well rooted, I'll make sure I keep the soil slightly moist, but not wet. Will not do well in standing water. And I will fertilize this plant every time I water with very diluted fertilizer, usually at 1/4 to half strength during the growing season. And that's it. That's how to propagate and care for a Ctenanthe Lubbersiana. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and stay well. Bye-bye.